one. All right, Josh, I always like asking people about, what they remember about their childhood, things that really stick out to them, things that were important to them that maybe were just fun, or things that were important in their development. So when you think back to your childhood growing up in the Carolinas, what stands out to you?
Probably the breakfast that I had with my grandmother. Pretty much every morning I stayed with her. A lot of life lessons was taught, sitting across from her, eating a bowl of grits with some corned beef and hash, So I learned a lot, and that's one of my all-time favorite, meals. I just appreciate that woman for everything she did for me and put into me. So that's definitely a memory right there that you brought back.
I know that you mentioned the impact your grandmother had. Can you cook up a breakfast like she could?
Not like she can, but I definitely learned. So my kids are definitely enjoying the benefits of me having a grandma like her. The one thing I can't do, Jared, is make scrambled eggs, which you'd be ashamed of.
Really?
Yes, I've only tried it one time, and it was the worst. My oldest son told me I did bad.
So whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, Josh Howard's in the kitchen cooking up a meal. What's your specialty?
To be honest, I like getting on the grill. So any type of burger, steak, seafood, I love putting that on the grill. And then I learned how to make some creamed spinach collard greens my last year in the D-League when I was taking cooking classes.
Okay.
That's like my signature as far as my family asked me to make it when we have any type of family gathering. So, yeah.
Hey, you're bringing something to the table. That's good. Well, maybe next year if we do this, we'll have scrambled eggs conquered.
There we go. Yes, yeah. I plan on trying it again. Yeah.
Well, so your grandmother, the wisdom, the impact she had. What are the things that she taught you that stick with you to this day, that throughout your career were things you would look back on and maybe fall back on as, I guess, pieces of wisdom, pieces of guidance?
Just perseverance through tough times. Understanding, it's not going to be bad always, especially if you put forth the effort and have faith in God. That's one thing she taught me, was just believing in God and, continuing to walk your path. That's one thing I just, try to instill in my players that I have coming up under me as well. So, again, I appreciate that woman, and, for me to be able to pass on these gifts, I'm definitely going to do that.
All right. So what drew you to basketball, Josh? How old were you, and when do you remember falling in love with basketball?
Well, I was about 10 and a half, 11 when I asked my grandma for my first, backyard goal. Didn't really think nothing of it. I just knew, like any other neighborhood kid, I wanted a goal in my back. So what I had to walk about 5 miles to the nearest park. So it was definitely convenient to have a goal in your backyard. And I guess I started taking it serious when my last year of playing Pop Warner football in '91, when we was getting assigned our numbers for the team, I got number 63. And I never understood to this day why I got 63 and I was a pretty good football player. And they had me playing defensive line at that too. So it crushed my football dreams, and then I just transitioned over to basketball. And from probably about 92 to this day, I've just been an avid fan of the game and just understand how it is and how it operates and how you can be successful at it. So,
Josh, were you? I know you're obviously tall. Were you like D lineman size though? I mean, what were they doing there? Because you strike me more as a receiver.
Exactly, I had a receiver body in a 3-point stand trying to break the offensive line. So again, like I say, I never understood. None of the coaches ever broke it down to me. But that team that I played on too, I can brag about. We made it all the way to the national championship in Florida and won the national championship. So to be a part of a team like that at a young age also taught me, some good morals and values about sticking to, things that you already start. So definitely learned a lot about that.
Who are some of your basketball influences, Josh?
To be honest, I really didn't have anybody I looked up to in the immediate area as far as basketball wise. When I took to the game, I guess you could say the typical Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Magic Johnson when they were in their prime. I enjoyed watching them on Sundays, coming home from church, and NBA on NBC.
Yeah.
So those were the best times where I kind of got my influence. Even watching Patrick Ewing and the Knicks, like those teams at that time were definitely awesome. I had an older cousin that used to take me everywhere with him. As far as like, growing up as a young man up under him, and he used to play basketball a lot, and he was a good football player. So my cousin Greg, he's definitely influential as far as like, I guess you could say, a mentor in my life as well. So.
You mentioned the perseverance, and I heard you after you got the head coaching job at UNT Dallas, and we're going to talk about that here in a bit. But you were asked about the ups and downs of your career, and I was so impressed with the way you conveyed your answers. And so I guess I'm curious, one of the first things that I remember reading was the night you were handcuffed before the SAT, and I read your thoughts in response to that, and I guess that wasn't maybe the first time you had to overcome something, but that certainly was a significant time. How did that moment impact you? How did those couple of days, that night, and then having to take the SAT and not getting the score that you needed to go to college, how did that end up impacting you in a positive way moving forward?
Just taught me about just focusing on what I needed to do, not getting caught up in the crowd, and it was a prime example of, following the crowd. One thing that I've learned and I also instill in my guys is like being a leader, not a follower, and that's, one thing you can do to make sure that you stay out of trouble or, do what's right in your best interest. So, those times, like I say too, everybody, has situations in their life that they don't, are not proud of, and you just have to learn from those situations and definitely use them as teaching tools for others when they're coming along behind you. Because, it's impactful, man. And if you can reach one, you can teach one. That's another little motto I use. So, I'm just always thinking about the next person because I've learned from my past.
So you said those breakfasts with your grandmother, she taught you about perseverance. It's one thing, obviously, we learn things, we hear things, but then to apply it, when you were going through these moments, whether it was that night that we just talked about or maybe you're struggling, over a few day stretch, in the NBA, just having bad games or something more serious. Were you at that point when you were playing, were you able to apply those, or was it only something that now in retrospect, you're able to look and appreciate what those struggles did to you? Or did you have that perspective when you were growing up and when you were growing as a player?
Yeah, I just had it when I was growing as a player, understanding like I had to push through. I had to understand like I can't get knocked down and stay down. Like especially, if we were talking about the Mavs when I played here, especially the type of team I was on, like with the leaders I was playing with and the Dirk Nowinski's, the Jason Kidds, like I knew I had to hold my weight. If not, sometimes carry their weight and vice versa. So I always knew I couldn't be a quitter, basically, and I had people that depended on me. So, it was also a great feeling to have and understand, like, any type of obstacle that could come my way. I felt like I could, push through it no matter what it was.
So then you go to Hargrave Military Academy for that extra year, and then you end up at Wake and spend 4 years at Wake. So I want to get into the academic side of that because I think, what you accomplished there is really special. But just from a basketball standpoint, how did you grow as a player at Wake Forest? Why was Wake so important to you, or was it important when you look back on your development?
Oh, yeah, Wake was very important in my development. Coach Odom, Coach Hayes, Coach Nestor, Coach Turner, the weightlifting crew, just the overall campus, just being able to connect and, having that opportunity to further my career at Wake Forest was definitely a blessing. And I do look back on it, every day, just as far as like what that university meant to me, as far as like making me who I am or a part of my life and growing up as a man. Wake, man, it's a beautiful place to be. Have you ever been to that campus?
I've been to that area. I've been to Duke's campus. I've been to North Carolina's campus. I've never been to Wake Forest campus.
Oh man, you would definitely have to like get back out there because I'm from Winston, of course, where Wake is. So to even know that side of town and know how elegant it is and how prestige it can be, like Wake is just beautiful, man. And like I say, the way they embraced me as a student, I learned so much, and like I majored in religion and minored in international studies. So my whole process was also about just thinking about the world globally, what's going on in everyday events, and trying to get an understanding on how we can better the world is like the typical that I learned from my degrees, So learned a lot from Wake, man, and I know, people that go there definitely learns a lot as well. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned the minor. I noticed, I don't know at what point you realized, hey, I'm going to play in the NBA, but for guys in college, it's such a time commitment. You don't often have time to minor in something. I mean, sometimes your major is challenging enough because the basketball or the football or whatever sport is pulling you in so many directions. So you made the decision to come back for a fourth year. You would have likely been a lottery pick, certainly a first-round draft pick. You went back. You wanted to graduate. And not only that, I think the fact you got a minor, and just hearing you speak about this, school wasn't just something that you did to stay eligible. Like, this was important to you. So why was it important to you, and why did you ultimately decide to come back and graduate? Why was that specifically important to you?
Well, to come back and graduate was just a personal goal and a family goal. My mom, being a single parent mom, raising two, African American men, definitely is just like a honor, to see one of her boys graduate from college. So that was definitely a goal I wanted to do for my mom and, like I say, for myself. So just coming back and doing that was a blessing, and I was just thankful that I could do
it. When you think of like the academic side, and the wanting to have a better understanding of the world and the religion, was there anything from, and I know this is a while ago, but anything from the academic side that you carry with you, or a lesson you learned from those classes, or just having to balance the academics and the sports, anything involving the academics that really stands with you today?
That's a great question, because during the time I was majoring in religion was when a lot of the focus was on Islam and radicalism, and if you could trust the Middle East and things of that nature. So there was a lot of hate going on as far as like in politics and just the common news feed. So it's just interesting to learn people's views and basically shape my view as far as like just looking around everything as a whole board, not just basing my answers off of my own opinions, but definitely listening to everybody else's opinion and then shaping my opinion. So that aspect right there definitely has stayed with me all the way into today. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, I'm
always like, if somebody like conversations if we had in private, like I would always definitely respect what you say, and I'm just giving an example, like, and definitely shape it to my opinion on how I feel, and just come up with I guess you could say, an ultimate answer where I think everybody would be cool with, or if not, just agree to disagree and move on with it.
Okay, so you complete your senior year at Wake. You have a really accomplished collegiate career. How the heck did you fall to 29th? What I mean, some guys they're undersized. You're not a small guy. You're 6'7". What did you ever get a good reason as to why, despite everything you had accomplished, you had fallen and thankfully to the Mavs, but that you had that experience at the draft?
The one excuse that I heard consistently was that I did everything good and not one thing great, which I guess you can say that was the equivalent of being the hybrid players that are definitely the greatest players playing the game at this point. So, for me to hear that continuously, it definitely was like, question mark on why, but it definitely gave me that drive and that motivation once, the Mavericks drafted me to definitely show, and prove that I was definitely one of the best or the elite players in the game, while I was at my prime.
It's funny because a lot of people are watching The Last Dance and they're watching the scores from some of those finals games, and now it's like if you don't score 100, you got no shot at winning. And the Jordan Bulls were winning games in the 80s and holding opponents to the 70s. It's just the way the game has evolved. Hearing you say that, I wonder if you entered the draft this year, how much differently you'd be valued with the way people evaluate players now versus back then. That's really interesting. That was the reasoning. And then what was important for you as you grew from an NBA rookie into an NBA All-Star and being such an important part on some really, really good teams?
Staying consistent. I learned that was one of the keys to being successful, is especially at your job. If I could do what I did consistently at a high tempo or at a high level, I wouldn't have to worry about, looking over my shoulder, worrying about the next person coming to take my spot. I knew that I had to do my job so my team could do our job, So it's definitely, just a team effort is what I learned from that too.
A lot of people over the last 2 years with Dirk's retirement have shared stories about Dirk and the worker and the influence. What was your relationship with Dirk, and how did he maybe impact you, and maybe how did you impact him as you guys were growing together?
We had a pretty cool relationship. Like that was my guy. The story that I always tell people about is how he used to he knew lyric for lyric Wu-Tang songs, which is pretty funny. Like, and he would get on the bus and just bust out a lyric, and I turn around and I'm like, Dirk, you really know this music, And I knew he really did, So that was a funny story to tell about him. But just to play alongside him and to see his work ethic before practice, after practice, how he handled the media, his professionalism, even how he was a community man. I definitely watched him, and seen the struggles that he had to deal with, coming from a whole other country and settling in and doing what he did and becoming who he became, So I definitely learned from him, and to play along a Hall of Famer, All-Star, is definitely a blessing and a notch in my book that nobody can take away from me. Because, like I said, to play one of the great ones in the game, Dirk Nowitzki, is always an honor and a pleasure.
The 2000s Western Conference rivalries were so special, and the Mavs were right in the middle of that. With you had the Lakers, you had the Spurs, the Suns had their time, but the Mavs-Spurs matchups, be it in the regular season or the postseason, were so much fun. I'm curious if you have any specific memories or thoughts on the rivalry that you guys had with the Spurs, kind of battling for that dominance in the state of Texas in the Western Conference.
Yeah. It was special, like you said. I mean, we could throw Houston in there too as well.
Yeah.
They definitely was a force to be reckoned with in those times. But like you said, it was kind of like Dallas, San Antonio, from what a lot of people's perspective was in Texas. And like you say, just to go back and forth with a great team like that, and for us to solidify that we're also a great team during those times, it put a lot of pride in the state of Texas to know that we had those three, basketball teams going at each other like that, and any one could have been the champion at any given year in those times. So, hats off to San Antonio and Houston for the games and the series, because definitely a lot of those games I do remember. I actually watched when we beat them, I want to say in 2006 to go to the championship. And it was just an amazing dogfight, man. And, to be in that type of atmosphere and to have that type of game was definitely fun and to be in.
Did you ever think that in a critical game against the Spurs, your head coach would accidentally hit you in the groin?
Yeah, I look to this day still like, how in the world? I know watching film, I should have been paying attention instead of talking it down. So that was one thing I wasn't doing.
For people who don't know what I'm referencing, there was an accidental interaction between you and Avery. To the best of your recollection, what went down?
I just knew I got hit, and like I say, watching film again, I was talking to Damp and wasn't paying attention. So I should have been paying attention, like I said, instead of talking.
And that was, in the middle of a great run, and you guys had some great runs with the Mavs. Obviously, the 2006 run was so special. It didn't have the ending that anyone would have wanted.
Yeah.
When you think back to that season, though, I know there was so much more good than there was bad. Are you able, it seems like with your perspective that I think I know the answer to this, but are you able to look back on that year with positive memories, or does the ending still bother you and kind of linger?
It's bittersweet. As the years go by, you kind of think back on it like you're saying, like, well, wow, what if this would have happened? But, I don't really worry about it. I just know at the end of every NBA season, on NBA TV, they pretty much rerun the game. So you're going to see it at some point every year. So, I guess the ultimate answer is, at the end of the day, knowing that I'm one of few people that played in the NBA championship, nobody will ever take that away from me. And to have that experience and to have that knowledge to know that I can put my mind in a place where I can play almost 100+ games consistently and make it to the championship, nobody can ever take that away from me.
All right, one more question, and then I want to get into the coaching side of things. When you got traded from the Mavs, I know that's always a different experience for everyone. What was that experience like for you, and how did you feel when you got the news that the only team you had known, the team you had become an all-star with, decided that they were ready to move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like this for any other player. Like, if it's a place that you play for years, that's your home, like, no matter what. And, to leave your home is definitely a change. But, you got to also have that mindset that this is a business, meaning the NBA, and trades happen. So you got to handle it in a professional way, And I ended up in D.C., which is another great experience for me in my life, So I don't regret, being traded. It's just a part of the game. But that's another reason why I think I made Dallas my home anyway, as far as living here, because the place is awesome. I enjoyed the fans. The community's awesome, and, it's a successful place in my mind. So why not live here? Why not be a part of something that's awesome? So,
favorite spot in Dallas?
Ooh, man, you put me on the spot. So I'm going to say it, but they ain't going to know which one. But I like Crab Station.
Okay. All right.
Crab Station's one. I like Baby Back Shack.
All right.
I like the Cake Bar. I'll leave those three out there. That's it.
That's Josh's top three. That works for me.
Yeah. I got some other ones, but like I said, the people be trying to find where I'm at.
I know you like being low key, so we don't want people going on a scavenger hunt for you here.
Yes, sir.
Josh, you said something in an article. Gosh, it must have been over a decade ago. That I thought was a really cool quote. You said, "I learned a long time ago not to count on other people to validate you, to make you feel good about yourself. I know who I am, and I'm cool with it."
Amen.
How important? Yeah, how important has that quote been for you? And what are some of the moments in your life maybe where you've really had to lean on that quote to get you through some tough times?
Well, I mean, it's one of my standards I live by. It's like my motto, basically. You have to believe in yourself, regardless if nobody believes in you or not. And I can give you an example of when I was playing middle school basketball and I wasn't good, and I remember people picking on me, but I didn't care, because at the end of the day, I knew I was out there giving it my all. And again, those were just one of those lessons I had learned from my grandma, and just valued, what I was doing and kept working on my craft to push through. Could you repeat the second part of the question?
Well, I didn't know if there were any specific moments where you really had to lean on that quote and thinking about that helped you, I guess, push through some tough times. Yeah,
and I'm glad you said that. Repeat it for me. Just like my initial coaching was one of those times where, without having the experience and jumping right into college, there's a lot of people that didn't have a clue that I took a coaching clinic the year previous, that I had some type of experience, but was, talking about I wouldn't be successful or I wouldn't be able to start up a program. And sure enough, I was able to do it. And it was just in, me believing in what I could do and not worrying about what nobody said. So, I mean, yes, it's definitely something that I stand by and live by.
So, and the clinic you mentioned, is that the NBA Top 100 clinic?
Yes,
is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, sir. I went to the one in 2015. One of the best experiences of my life. As far as, fellowshipping with former NBA players that were also trying to find their way after basketball. And, the program they put on was definitely a helpful tool. I still look back on some of the videos and notes that I took from there and just applied to my coaching, and it's definitely helped me excel in what I do as coach.
What pushed you to go to that? Because I think I've heard you say that when you were playing, it wasn't like you thought, hey, when I'm done, I'm going to get into coaching. So what led you to go to that clinic?
The amount of young men and women that wanted me to work them out as far as individually. And people wanted me to start AAU teams. And I knew I didn't want to get into it or get into basketball that route. So I, took a look at coaching, and I already knew like I had a foundation that had been running, for maybe like 10 years. And all we did was, we did after school programming, and we did, uh, what's the name? Yeah, after school programming as far as like, basketball camps and things of that nature. And then I just realized like this is another platform for me to be able to spread the word, give back to my community, and also give, young men and women, access to my platform so they can go out there and be successful.
So you get a job at Piedmont, and I guess that really kind of was a big step for you that ultimately has helped you get back to DFW with UNT Dallas. How did that Piedmont job come about?
Oh, man, you ready for an amazing story?
Let's hear it.
All right. So on that day, I was working out kids, and me and Dr. Pettit, who's the president of Piedmont, had also been communicating through my foundation with one of my employees, Steve Niven, about how we could diversify the community of Winston-Salem, which is my hometown. So, and we was going to do it through my foundation and through Piedmont. So he was allowing me to use his gym to work out kids and do basketball camps there. And he came in on the day 7 years prior to Coach Skip Prosser passing away and told me his head coach had just resigned. And if I knew any coaches, to let them know. So after workouts and after he told me that, I prayed about it on the way home. And, something said, pick up the phone and call Dr. Pettit. So I called Dr. Pettit and told him I found his head basketball coach. And he was like, well, what's his name? And I said, it's me. And he was so, elated because he didn't think I would take the job, let alone I never, like I said, thought I would have a job like that fall in my lap, especially after taking the coach's, top 100 MVV clinic and basketball clinic, and then just this happening within like 2 months after I go to the clinic. Like it was just an amazing story, So I just took the job and ran with it and applied everything that I learned from Coach Prosser, Coach Odom, my previous coaches, and just been continuing to grow as a head men's basketball coach.
When you look at where you are now, and that is an amazing story, and I appreciate you sharing that. And the timing of it too, with Skip Prosser, who for those listening, accomplished so much at Wake Forest. When you look at where you are now as a coach versus maybe when you started, what are the areas in which you've really improved and grown?
Patience. Patience, like understanding, like the era of young men, like are different than my times, and like it happens. It's something that you just as a coach you need to be aware of. You have to understand the generation, understand how you need to interact with them, because every method that you use isn't going to work with every child that's on that court. And just getting to know the players, I think that's a thing that a lot of these coaches out here that are coaching don't really think about, like getting to know your players honestly, like. Because time goes by so fast, and I know you can't learn every one of the players, but the effort that you put forth in learning the player goes a long way. Take it from a former student to athlete, So those are things that I've learned, as being a coach is definitely patience, being patient.
Sorry, can you just, for my wife, can you repeat that word?
Patience.
There we go. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. Okay, so now you're at Piedmont, and you get the job at UNT Dallas, and you're going to start up a program here in the Metroplex, and I know so many people are fired up to hear your name. I mentioned this earlier. You like to stay low-key, and so I think a lot of Mavs fans probably were wondering, hey, I wonder what Josh Howard's up to, and it was really cool to see just on social media when that was announced, the excitement that at least I saw from the basketball community on social media, especially here locally. But how did the UNT Dallas job come about, and why is starting a program up so appealing to you?
Well, starting a program up is just basically like, you putting your footprint on young men and women as far as like motivating them to be great. Hands down, that's it. Making them a student athlete, understanding that success comes with hard work. That's first and foremost, and just being organized and starting the program, having structure so those young men understand like, this is a job, basically, and you're going to come in here and have fun and enjoy your job and, get something out of it as far as getting a quality education from UNT Dallas. And the fan support, it's pretty cool to see it because, like you say, I am low-key. when I posted it and seeing just like the response. It was just a blessing to know people were still interested in what I do. Of course, I've seen people try to figure out what I've been doing, but it's just living life, man. People don't realize athletes, football, basketball, baseball, all the sports, we're human. All right, we're human just like any other human. We just did a sport or did something that, others couldn't do, to a high, I guess you can say, competing level. So, that's the only difference, man. We put on our pants just like any other person any day, man. We just, out here living our lives, and that's all I've been doing is just enjoying my life, enjoying my kids. That's been the best part of, retiring and having time to be around my kids and even to come back here and coach where my kids are based. Man, I'm so excited to be here so they can see me coaching. And they didn't get a chance to see me play basketball because they were younger, but to see me coach is a whole nother aspect in their life that I'm glad I can be here to do for them.
When I talk to coaches, Josh, and I ask them what's important, in leading men or women, they always talk about having core values, conveying those values, and sticking to them. And I think I know just from this conversation what some of those might be for you, but what are the core values for Josh Howard, the coach?
Being honest with yourself, being able to have belief in your craft or what your ability is. Those are my main two values. Because honesty will lead into, having faith. Just like I say, believing in yourself, and then you can achieve amazing things once you get out there and set the mind or have the mindset to do it.
You've referenced, Josh, your charity work, and I would never have this conversation and not at least allow you to kind of share what you've been doing, and B, what some of the needs are that maybe hopefully people listening feel compelled to contribute towards. So I guess kind of open ended. What are the various things you're involved in, and what are some of the needs that you've experienced through your time doing charitable work?
Well, back in North Carolina, my hometown, I do an after-school program at Sprague Recreation Center, and it's basically for the low-income area side of town that I grew up on, and it's for the young men and women, that don't have a place to go after school, and I'm able to give them a meal, have them experience different type of field trips, educational field trips at that, where they can learn from it. Also with, maybe having to be away from home in an environment where they don't necessarily want to be at. So it's kind of a place of comfort, a place of refuge where the young men and women can, learn as well as be safe. And then down here in Dallas, I participate with the government in a feeding program where I also help feed low-income areas around the Dallas Metroplex, where we also have after-school programming. We're basically, like I said, up in North Carolina, the same thing, but on a bigger scale down here in Dallas. So those are my main two babies, I would say, that I definitely am in tune to, that a lot of people don't know that I do, especially here in Dallas. So, any type of support, is cool. I have a website, joshhowardfoundation.com, that a lot of information can be seen on. Along with just in general, when people reach out to me on my Instagram, I'm pretty thorough at like looking and trying to figure out who's honest and who's not, and sending it over to my assistant with the foundation, and she gets in touch with people. So I'm very consistent with it, but real discreet, and I just enjoy doing what I do, because it's about helping others, and Lord knows I've been helped, and I understand the value of giving back to my community and others. So I'm definitely going to do it as long as I'm here.